Let's quickly shift focus to the other big story that we are tracking right here, and that is the violent protest that took place today on Friday after the Friday prayers. It turned violent in Prayagraj, in Howrah, and now the latest information that we are getting, and we would like to flash this as breaking news. The Bharatiya Janata Party has written to the governor where they have demanded that army or paramilitary forces be deployed in Bengal. There were violent protests in Ranchi as well, where curfew has been imposed. The big question is, since when has turning violent become a form of protest? So the BJP, that's the breaking news right now, the BJP has demanded that army and paramilitary be deployed in Bengal as a result, as a consequence of the violence in Howrah. But let's first talk about Uttar Pradesh, where in Prayagraj things went out of control, but the administration tried to control it. Alok Pandey now joins us. Alok, the facts first. What all do we know and what all have we learnt about the violent nature of this protest, and what's the police action that has taken place?
Well, I'll first start with Prayagraj because that is where the major part of or a bigger violence has taken place as versus Saharanpur and Moradabad in western UP. So in Prayagraj, this started after the Friday prayers, and I have to point out that this was confined and remains confined to one or two localities within the city. It is not widespread across the city. Nevertheless, the visuals that have come in are shocking. And you had a situation just 10 minutes before we went live, Sanket. Nitin, our reporter in Allahabad or Prayagraj, was just sending me this video where you had all top police officials and administration officials taking shelter in a shop, and stones were literally raining down on them. So a large amount of stone pelting took place, following which there was a heavy force that was rushed in, and then they also resorted to a lathi charge, and they fired innumerable rounds of tear gas. And I think it took them a good 3 to 4 hours before they could bring the situation totally under control. As we speak, the police deployment there continues, and at the moment you have a situation where the police is making arrests also. We don't have the exact specific number of how many people have been arrested in Prayagraj, but in Saharanpur also, where there was, there wasn't any stone pelting, but there was a lathi charge by the police, and there were heavy crowds that gathered there. It's a very sensitive town. So 38 people have been arrested there. And very briefly in Moradabad also, you had a situation where after Friday prayers there was a large gathering, again localized to one area, and there also the police had to use a little bit of force. I think over 100 people have been arrested in total from the districts or the parts that saw violence. Just one last point, Sanket, you see, I think we all need to put this into perspective also. UP is a very large state. It has 75 districts, and there are 10-20 major towns or cities in the state. And you also have to look at the fact that there were 3 or 4 major towns that saw violence, while the rest of the places, say a sensitive area like Meerut, like Ghaziabad in the NCR, all sensitive places. Nothing happened there, and the police and the administration did manage to, get the Friday prayers conducted peacefully in many parts of the state.
Absolutely. Glad you put that out there. Thank you very much, Alok Pandey, for joining us. I would also like to go to Mr. Shahid Siddiqui, Chief Editor of Nai Dunya. Mr. Siddiqui, welcome. The first question that one asks over here is, while there is great and palpable anger in the Muslim community in India, and the government was forced to take action as a consequence of Islamic nations registering their protests, at what point do we start? Don't you think that people must come together and try and condemn what people have started considering their right to violence? I mean, whatever the reason may be, don't you think that turning violent is not the solution?
Sanket, the whole situation is unfortunate, and I totally condemn what has happened today. Nothing justifies violence, especially in the name of the Prophet Muhammad. This kind of violence is an insult to his memory, to his teachings, and I do not find any justification whatsoever. Those who are indulging in it are not doing any good to his name or good to the idea of Islam. But I would like to say that I'm happy that there were namaz in thousands and thousands of mosques all over the country. Friday, Muslims assemble in mosques all over the country. Everywhere it was peaceful. In few places, this kind of agitation took place, where some people indulged in stone throwing, led to clashes with the police. But these are not riots. But clashes with the police are also to be condemned, totally condemned. And I feel the time has come when we should all speak out against any kind of violence in the name of religion, in the name of Maryada Purushottam Shri Ram, or in the name of Prophet Muhammad, by any group or by any community. And we all must come together to condemn this kind of violence and instigation and insult to any religion or any idea of which is respected by all the faiths in this country. That is not the country we have always believed in, and that is not the country we want to live in.
Mr. Siddiqui, then in that case, don't you think that that possibility should not arise where people start to justify this, where they start to question any police action that will begin from here on? Obviously, the police will have to take action. If you turn violent, if you beat up policemen, if you pelt stones, if you indulge in arson, there will be police action.
Yes, police action should always be there. Police action should have taken place against Nupur Sharma long time back. She should have been arrested by now. The way police arrest these hooligans within minutes and bulldoze their houses within days, similar kind of action should be seen. Police should not be seen to be biased in any way. That is very essential for any country. Rule of law to be maintained, justice system to be respected, the laws to be respected by everybody. Nobody should feel that laws are biased against anybody. And that is where our leadership should come forward and assure the nation that this will not happen, this is not happening, and regain the confidence of everybody. We must all come out against this kind of, clashes in the name of religion. And I believe that it is high time that the Muslim religious scholars, religious leaders, political leaders, other leaders should sit down with Hindu leaders, Hindu religious leaders, the RSS, the Vish Hindu Parishad, everybody. I have no problem with anybody. We should all come together and try to find a common ground where we do not attack, we do not create this kind of situation, because India has to move forward. If India has to move forward, our society has to remain calm, the society has to remain united. With social upheaval, the country cannot develop, and we are in a situation where we cannot allow our economy, our society not to develop at a pace which can give relief to our people. People are suffering at the moment.
Okay. Mr. Shahid Siddiqui, thank you very much. Appreciate you joining us. Let's kickstart our debate. Professor Faizan Mustafa, constitutional expert and the Vice Chancellor of NAL SAR University of Law. Salman Nizami, leader of the Congress. Tehseen Poonawala is a political analyst. Views lean towards the Congress. Dr. Shoaib Jamai, chairman of the Indian Muslim Foundation. Ratan Sharda, author of RSS from an organization to a movement. Karthik Chopra, spokesperson of the Nirmohi Akhada and a political analyst, and Pramod Swami, leader of the Bharatiya Janata Party. Thank you very much. This is an important discussion. Let's kickstart that discussion. I will begin with you first, Professor Mustafa. You see, the same question that I asked Mr. Shahid Siddiqui also. Who do we blame, and at what point do we start justifying violence? Because I always see that an explanation begins that nobody can justify violence, violence is bad, but it was a consequence of the utterances that were made. This addition of the but, do you think that is the problem?
No, Sanket, as constitutional law teacher, first of all, I would say that the fundamental value of any democracy has to be freedom of speech and expression. I have taken this position that I am against all blasphemy laws. I am aware that as many as 71 countries in the world have blasphemy laws, but blasphemy laws are the relics of past. As a constitutional law teacher, I am worried that the religion has occupied the center stage in our discourse. Ideally, with secularism, we should get modernity, and religion should be relegated to the private space. Having said that, I would also say that the same constitution also gives citizens right to assemble peaceably without arms. Now, both the expressions are important. You have a right to protest, but it is to be done peaceably. and you have to be without arms. Now, throwing stones or indulging violence, as Shahid Bhai rightly said, goes against the Prophet of Mercy and the Prophet of Rahmah, who himself was physically attacked in Taif. And the Urdu couplet is, मैंने चाहा था कि ताइफ पे कयामत आए, पर ये महबूब की मर्जी थी कि रहमत आए. Those who are talking of Prophet, they have to be extremely peaceful, extremely humble, and extremely merciful. So I take the point that there is absolutely no scope whatsoever for any kind of violence at all. But at the same time, we need to ensure that there is rule of law. My position is that religions do not need any defamation law like blasphemy. But since you have such a law, we need to move with some speed, at least in some cases, so that passions are controlled.
No, but Professor Mustafa, you see, a point on blasphemy may not be applicable here, because what we are looking at is utterances by a spokesperson which have offended a community, and the strong arm of the law finally coming in. Now, you can dispute whether this should have come in earlier and why did it come after pressure. One can debate or put that into debate. But now that it has come in, there are enough provisions in the law to prevent hate or incite communal passions between two communities. I am saying, why do you feel that? Why don't you feel that there is an engineering of anger which is happening in the minority community also now?
No, you see, the point is that more than the blasphemy law, I have been advocating that any democratic country should ideally have the hate speech law. And you have hate speech laws in section 153A and 153B
Correct.
of Indian Penal Code. But there has been some kind of an environment of hate for some time. And when you do not put anything in an academic way, that say, let's put it like that, the question is child marriages. Now, are we aware, as per our own census, even today, 12 million, children are married below the age of 10. Today, we are talking of today. It was not put as an academic debate. It was put to ridicule somebody, to lower the reputation of someone people consider as holy. So the whole context was very, very offensive. Had we acted with God speed in a timely manner, things would have been different. There have been cases, Sanket, where some Facebook post was written about some politician, and the police quickly swung into action and people were arrested. Why in a matter of this magnitude, we could not, really act swiftly?
Okay. Ratan Sharda, as well as Mr. Pramod Swami. Ratan Sharda, we'll begin with you first. You see, none of our panelists, none of them are saying that we are justifying violence. Nobody is saying that. It is wrong and the strong arm of the law has to come in. But the only point and the only rider is that had the strong arm of the law come in 15 days ago, when the comment made by Nupur Sharma first came to light, none of this would have happened. No justification for violence. It's just the swiftness of action which is being questioned.
Sanket, first of all, I am refreshingly happy and I must compliment Shahid Siddiqui for speaking without any ifs and buts. All through these debates for so many days, there is always an if and but when somebody tries to condemn somebody.
Yeah.
All the people sitting here, I met more or less everybody on the debates except Tehseen Poonawala. None has condemned the ridicule after the Gyanvapi mosque survey came up. If the police had taken action, I've said earlier also in your program, at the time when Gyanvapi mosque and shivling jokes and ridicule was being done and similar issues were, similar action was taken, there would be no Nupur Sharma on the debate. So this issue is that when police act so late, then you can't blame it for taking another 2 weeks. The bigger issue is, what if Hindus had taken to the streets? In Gyanvapi case, there was every possibility the way it was being spread across the media, whether electronic media or social media, if they had taken on the street, what would happen? Is this a challenge for people to come on the roads? Is it the way we conduct our democratic society? And secondly, As you rightly pointed out, if there is only a law there and action is being taken, why take to streets? And people who have instigated these kind of dharnas and seemingly premeditated morchas across India, did they stop somebody asked the effigy of Nupur Sharma to be removed? Did anybody tell these boys that please don't take stones with you, please don't create riot, let it be peaceful? That is where my problem is. RSS chief very clearly said a week back, at the risk of being ridiculed and criticized by Hindus and even Muslims, when he said, let us bury the past and let us move ahead. What has happened, what is pending can be done, but we cannot carry on this kind of bitterness and this kind of atmosphere. But did any Muslim leader, except what I heard today, really taken a stance? So if we don't take a stance and we want to take law into our own hand, and we can allow Sir Tansay Juda in the heat of the moment saying that, oh, but somebody said this or that. If there is right to offend, it has to be for everybody, or there should be no right to offend. We are a democracy. Are we going back the route when we will have blasphemy law so strong and hate speech law so strong that people will not on TV, people will not go and write anything, or the fear that somebody will pull them into the police station? And if police is not acting, why it is not acting? You cannot blame police, because ultimately it's the leadership which instigates or calms the people. If there are people who allowed them to come on the mosque, create all this mayhem, and then the police kya kar rahi hai, that is very totally wrong argument. And the social leaders, the political leaders have a duty to come out and tell the people to calm down and let law do what it wants to do and not create ifs and buts, because everybody loves his or her religion, and we have no right to offend anybody.
Exactly. Everybody loves their religion, no right to offend anybody. And we'll put to debate on our weekend edition of The Big Fight how the media is also equally responsible for this damaging atmosphere of orchestrating hate between communities with these hate debates. One has to get into a self-critical and self-analytical mode also. Media is equally to blame. There is a hate nexus that goes on. Tehseen Poonawalla,
not equally, largely.
Thank you.
Largely, not everybody. Correct. But a bit of self-critique is good. Tehseen Poonawalla, you had raised your finger.
Yeah. Thank you, Sanket. And I want to take this opportunity, because NDTV is one of the most credible channels in our country, to appeal to all my fellow Muslim citizens that, look, you may have been offended and you have a right to protest peacefully, as Faizan Saab rightly said, or Shahid Siddiqui Saab said before that. But you do not have a right to take violence, to ask for the beheading of Nupur Sharma, or to threaten her, or to threaten anybody. Allah is the most merciful. We look at the Prophet in as one of the most merciful people who, in the history of humanity. You do not need to indulge in violence. So calm down, protest peacefully, but not in a way that harms our country. This is Gandhi's country, this is Maulana Azad's country, this is our country. There's a second thing that I want to make. Blasphemy laws have no space in a modern constitutional democracy. 295A is often misused by many political parties across the spectrum. We need that 295A, despite the Supreme Court judgments on that, it has been misused, should go. But hate speech, speech with the intention to hurt people, to put people down, needs to be dealt with. The political parties cannot get away by saying XYZ is fringe or ABC is fringe. And this is happening across the spectrum. If action is taken against Nupur Sharma, action should also be taken in visible action against the OAC brothers, who, by the way, have not condemned this violence. And therefore, I'm saying, today, India is not just a 75-year-old country. India is an old civilization. We need to think that all of us will not be there 40, 50, 60 years, but our country will survive. What is the way forward? So all of us need to pause, take a step back, breathe, and say, look, we need to sit back, talk to each other, and not talk to each other with the idea of putting each other down, but the idea of building bridges and building
friendship.
Okay,
Dr. Shoaib Jamai. Dr. Shoaib Jamai, Chairman of the India Muslim Foundation, I want to come to you and I want to ask you this question. Don't you think that condemning of violence must be prompt and quick? Over here, questions are being raised. Number one, you are angry. You want to protest. You have all the right to protest. But do you think that this assembly all over the country was spontaneous or planned? Was it Muslims feeling very strongly about it and coming out on the streets 15 days later? Or was it politically planned? synchronized.
No, one of the Sanket, one of the very important thing which I want to echo with Professor Faizan Mustafa is that from the source where this atmosphere get wounded, from the same source it will get healed. It is the responsibility of the TV channels, the panelists, the anchors, to diffuse this kind of atmosphere.
No, one
Because
moment. When I said that TV channels must be self-critical, must analyze what they're doing.
Of course.
I don't think anybody justifies picking up a stone, attacking police.
I don't agree, trying to make media scapegoat. We are responsible.
I don't agree with that as well.
See, the thing is that I will say, I will not justify the violence. I will not justify the stone pelting. I will not justify the taking the law into their own hand, because this is a democratic country, yes, but this runs by the constitution. But the thing is that how the things has come down to this misery. This is a very unfortunate situation came to our country.
Now it appears as if you are justifying violence.
This came from the last 8 years. Don't you see how the BJP spokesperson or the Hindutva brigade has bullied the Muslims in every manner? This has to be stopped before.
No, it has to be stopped. But my point is, when you make an argument like this, Dr. Jamai, it almost appears as if you are justifying violence. Ratan Sharda quickly, and then Karthik Chopra.
No. Sanket, I am not justifying the thing. That nobody has the right to take the law into their hand. Nobody has the right. I am not justifying. And everyone should understand that the Prophet Muhammad was very mercy, have shown mercy to the non-believers itself. So it is the responsibility of the Muslim community and as a citizen of India, that we should not break the law. And लेकिन गांव में, खेड़ों में, छोटे शहरों में कैसे समझाएंगे लोगों को? अभी तो लुटियन जोन में बड़े चैनलों पे हम बात करते हैं इस तरीके से, लेकिन जब छोटे-छोटे जो शहर हैं, जहाँ छोटी मस्जिदें हैं, छोटे-छोटे इमाम बाड़े हैं, वहां पे कैसे जाके समझाएंगे? वहां समझाने के लिए लोकल इंटेलिजेंस, लोकल एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन
जब नफरत नहीं फैलाएंगे, I think this spreading of nafrat, spreading of hate is a problem.
Can I make some
it's a problem which is unfortunately feeding itself.
And I think NDTV
across religions.
NDTV is a very genuine platform to echo these concerns, because NDTV has a great responsibility. We everyone believe that NDTV is one of the most critical channel in India. That's why I am saying these things on NDTV channel, sir.
Unconsciously, when Mr. Shoaib Jamai calls others as non-believers, that is where the problem starts. Everybody is a believer. Nobody is non-believer just because you believe in certain God. So let us be very careful when use the language. Secondly, let us stop this business of last 8 years. I can count from 1963, Hazrat Bal riots, which are nothing to do with Hindus or Indians. It spread right up to East Pakistan, huge demonstrations. 1916 Al-Aqsa Mosque, demonstration across India. Jammu Kashmir, 64 temples destroyed as the government.
Ratan Sharda, please understand this. This is not a part of the history. It's a part of the last 8 years. You have seen many dharm sansad of hate has been organized, where there is a call to kill the Muslims, to kill the innocent. You have seen the mob lynchings. You have seen the violence in the name of hijab. You have seen the hate in the name of belief.
One by one, please, one by one.
So this has become magnanimous in not short amount of time.
Civilized
this
debate.
Is what the instantaneous of the Nupur Sharma
There is no harm in debating on religion.
Last 8 years. Where is the Prime Minister? What is the responsibility of the Prime Minister? What is the responsibility of the largest party in the democracy?
Dr. Jamai, one moment. Ratan Sharda, please conclude your argument so that I can move forward.
This is the problem. We come back to point when we go back to political stance, we go back to blaming others, but not take the blame as leaders of ourselves. I was talking about various examples of deliberate provocation, protest, and disturbed situation which are nothing with Indian Muslims. I gave some examples. I am talking about 2012 Rohingya riots which spread across India. I am talking of 2016 Malda riots which have nothing to do with anybody but to show the muscle part of the state government. I'm talking of Delhi riots where CAA riots started because people created a wrong impression about the law. So we have to understand this is a long-standing effort of creating ruckus is not required. So let us not blame one or the other party. Are we today going to say, बस हो गया, बहुत हो गया, अब हम इस तरह की नफरत की बातों से दूर रहेंगे, होगा तो भी उसको बैठ के बात करेंगे. Are we going to come to that stage, or you want to go back to history? And open.
Sanket,
As of this moment, Mr. Ratan Sharda, what you are saying right now, Mr. Sharda, appears extremely utopian. That's the sad part, because you pick up, you switch on any discussion anywhere, it is extremely poisonous. I won't even say hateful, poison-filled. Yes. And it happens across religions. I'm not just blaming the majority religion. I'm saying this is across religion. Karthik Chopra, the point is obviously in the words in a different context, to quote a Supreme Court judge, we need a healing touch. Where do you start with the healing touch in a situation like this?
To start with the healing touch, the first thing that we have to try and understand the root cause of all this violence, this hatred. We must, first of all, be respectful to each other's religions. One, my religion is not less than yours. My right to justice cannot be less than yours. My right to live safely and voice my, have a freedom of expression cannot be less than yours. But there is a rule of law. We all have to follow this rule of law. That is the only way we will be able to sit down to sort out our differences and come to a process of healing between communities. Please understand that there was something that was said wrong by a person against a certain faith, but there's a lot that's been said against my faith, which I have faced personally, yet I have requested the other side to desist from speaking on these matters, because my faith, my gods, my texts, my religious practices are mine. So you cannot insult them or make fun of them. At the same time, there is a rule of law. You cannot invoke blasphemy in India. India is not Pakistan. This is not where a poor Sri Lankan is burnt alive for whatever comments he has made.
We are using this word blasphemy on a number of occasions. Yes. I'm just saying that in the Indian context,
there is no concept of, there cannot be a concept of blasphemy. We have the constitution.
There is none. There is none. My only point, Karthik Chopra, this is not about blasphemy. This is about not spreading hate along religious lines.
Who profits from spreading hate? The word here is P-R-O-F-I-T. I repeat, P-R-O-F-I-T. Who profits from spreading hate? Political parties, politicians with their own vested interests, corporates who have their own agendas to push their program across countries, international countries who would profit greatly to see India in a state of chaos. We have very unfriendly neighbors on both sides. Nobody wants to see the rise of our country. Creating a situation of domestic chaos is the perfect way to discourage people from investing in our country. Isn't there a bigger game than this? Why do we just look at, you insulted me, therefore I can pick up a stone and throw it at you? I mean, there must be some reason for this simultaneous outpouring of anger, whether from one community or the other across the country. Sure. This is not acceptable in the year 2022.
Exactly.
The Supreme Court judgment which came out on Ram Janambhoomi talked about the healing touch. It talked about an end to all these differences between people. Why don't we see that? Who's profiting from this violence? Who is profiting from this misinformation? That is the root cause. You have to see who actually benefits from this. A person demonstrating on the road or getting hit on the head with a stone, or a policeman getting injured, they are certainly not profiting from this hate, this hate speech.
Now we'll make you a special, actually you're making some very, very interesting points, and we have a very special weekend edition of The Big Fight where we are talking about exactly this, hate for profit media, where we are talking about profitability of hate and how normalized hate has become, but the impact that it is having, and what is the role that the media should be playing in making sure that we do not promote hate for profit or poison for profit. Pramod Swami as well as Salman Nizami on the screen now. Pramod Swami, I want to come to you now. What is the responsibility according to you of the Bharatiya Janata Party in a situation like this? Mr. Swami.
ये सिर्फ भारतीय जनता पार्टी की रेस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी नहीं है. आज देश में रहने वाले हर नागरिक की ये रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है कि हम देश में अमन और शांति कायम रखें। लेकिन मुझे ताज्जुब होता है कि इस्लाम, जिसका शाब्दिक अर्थ ही शांति है, और वो भी जुम्मे की नमाज, शुक्रवार को जुम्मे की नमाज पढ़ने के बाद में किस तरह से हम पत्थर हाथों में लेकर करके पत्थरबाजी कर सकते हैं, इस विषय पर चिंतन होना चाहिए। इसको आप राजनीतिक स्टेटमेंट मान करके मेरी क्रिटिसिज्म कर सकते हैं, लेकिन इससे कोई फायदा नहीं होगा। आज सवाल सबसे बड़ा ये है कि आप लोकतंत्र में किसी बात से सहमत है, असहमत है, आपको प्रदर्शन करने का अधिकार है, लेकिन प्रदर्शन जो है वो पत्थरबाजी में तब्दील नहीं होना चाहिए। आप कानून से न्याय मांगते हैं और कानून के ऊपर, कानून के रखवाले पुलिस के ऊपर में पत्थर मार करके आप कौन से न्याय की आशा करते हैं? और इस तरह ठीक है, किसी के स्टेटमेंट से आप इत्तेफाक रख सकते हैं, इत्तेफाक नहीं रख सकते हैं, ये आपका लोकतांत्रिक अधिकार है और विरोध करना भी लोकतांत्रिक अधिकार है। लेकिन आज आपकी इमेज किस तरह में जा रही है? जरा इस मुद्दे पर कम से कम मुस्लिम इंटेलेक्चुअलों को इस पर विमर्श करना चाहिए कि 26/11 के ऊपर में इस तरह के प्रदर्शन क्यों नहीं होते हैं? जब कश्मीर में हिंदुओं की हत्या होती है तब इस तरह के प्रदर्शन क्यों नहीं होती है? जब यूपी में कमलेश तिवारी की हत्या होती है तब इस तरह के प्रदर्शन क्यों नहीं होते हैं? तो एक स्टेटमेंट जो है उन्होंने दिया, उस स्टेटमेंट से हम भी इत्तेफाक नहीं रखते, लेकिन उन्होंने किसी जगह से उसको कोट करके दिया तो ठीक है, उससे भी वो भी कोई बड़ी बात नहीं है। अगर कहीं से हम कोट भी करके अगर ऐसी बात कहते हैं,
कैसे बड़ी बात नहीं है?
मैं बता रहा हूं।
now at least now don't say this, no. Now after all hell has broken loose, you are saying कोई बड़ी बात नहीं।
Please don't twist my statement. Please complete me. Let me complete. आप twist मत करिए। मैं ये कह रहा हूँ,
मैं कोई twist नहीं कर रहा हूँ।
नहीं, आप ट्वीट कर रहे हैं, मेरे को बोलने दीजिए, बीच में क्यों मेरे को रोक रहे हैं? मैं ये कह रहा हूं कहीं से भी आपने कोट किया, लेकिन आपके बोलने से अगर किसी की भावनाएं आहत हो रही है तो वैसे स्टेटमेंट मत दीजिए आप, मैं ये बोल रहा हूं। तो ये मेरा कहने का मतलब है, कोई भी ऐसी बात जो पैगंबर की शान में कही जाए, जो महादेव की शान में कही जाए, जो हमारे देवी देवताओं की शान में कही,
बिल्कुल। सलमान निजामी, प्लीज कम इन। व्हाट इज योर व्यू, मिस्टर निजामी?
Well, Sanket, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is a prophet of peace. Islam is against violence, any sort of violence. You have the right to protest, but you can't take law in your own hands. And second, can you hear me?
Yes, please carry on.
Yes. And in politics, we go after each other. But what Nupur Sharma and did was utterly stupid and provocative. They cannot hide behind a leaf and excuses now that she was provoked by some panelists in the TV studio. But BJP belated sacking...
The same logic applies in the case of these protesters, violent protesters also. That just because you were provoked by a Nupur Sharma, you can't indulge in arson.
But government of India did not care for its own Muslim citizens who were protesting peacefully from last so many days.
Mr. Nizami, my question is very different.
That gives you no
I'm just turning your logic
from the Muslim countries.
Mr. Nizami, your very logic, I'm placing that and stating that by the similar logic,
if Muslims are involved in any violence, go and take action against them. Who is endorsing them? I am not endorsing them as a Muslim. So why you are shielding those who are insulting our Prophet? She has not been arrested yet. She is roaming free.
Okay. Tehseen and then Karthik.
You came under pressure from the Arabic world, but not listening to your own people.
Sanket, I have a massive problem when ifs and buts comes in. Period. There is no scope for violence. There is no scope for blasphemy law. Now this Shoaib sitting here, he on your show says, who will explain to the Muslims? Who is he to talk about Muslims? How is he a Muslim representative? I am very offended by this. He doesn't have to. Does Shoaib believe there should be blasphemy laws? Why is he talking? This is the problem. Your problem is that somebody comes in and claims to talk for a religion when they have no credibility to talk for the religion, and then put in their own interpretations. We have been very clear on this show. There is no scope for violence. The law will act against Nupur. The law will act against those who abused any religion. Period. Whether it's OAC or it's Nupur.
Yes.
But when you put ifs and buts, you are taking the credibility down of an entire community for which you have no right. You on this show, I'm paraphrasing the guy. He says, वो छोटे-छोटे मदरसों में इमामबाड़ों में कौन समझाएगा? Who are you to talk about them? Is this statement then that in small villages Muslims are violent? Is that the interpretation of that?
Dr. Jamai, please answer.
I'm offended by it.
Dr. Jamai's answer, please.
And do you believe there should be blasphemy laws?
Sanket, let me answer to my brother Tahsin. I'm very much clear, and there is no if and but that there should not be any violence and there should not be any kind of rhetoric like Sartan se juda, and there is no place in this country for the violence. Absolutely not. Nobody is justifying that. It's the law and order situation in the country right now. And as a perspective of the debate, because we have to debate on every aspect of this situation. That's why I'm debating that the situations come down to this misery due to some certain factors where there is a failure of the government, on the part of the government, on the part of the state, on the part of the administration. In Ranchi, I will show you a video, my dear friend, because Jharkhand is my home state. The police has shoot a small boy of 8-year-old with a 90-degree angle. Is this how the things work in a state?
No, I don't know. One moment. This is information that is available with you. I do not have one moment. Dr. Jamai, we are not going to. This is information that you are providing. We have not heard this information from credible sources. We are going to wait to get this from credible sources. Only then we can air this.
Absolutely.
Because again, here is how incitement happens.
I can say that this is condemnable and the violence is not
Dr. Jamai, आपने कुछ बोल दिया. What is the source of this information?
Yes. The source of this information is my own people who are living, my relatives are living in Ranchi.
No, sir, it does not work like this. It does not work like this on national television. On national television, what relatives say or what somebody says, hearsay does not work. Till such time that we do not have this information, because it is comment like this that leads to incitement. And that's where the problem is. And we are not going to allow this.
From the Ranchi has also reported this, and
we'll get it from a credible source. Only then we'll talk about it. Anyway, I've run out of time. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us on the Coup app. Some comments coming in. Shiv says, are we doing anything to stop these violent outbreaks? Jeet says, protests are fine until they become violent. Stopping for a short break at this moment. Big Fight continues on the other side.